All right, and so you're here at the Estate Planning End of the Year Blowout Event presented by Haymon Law Office. I am Glennetta Haymon, and what we do is we protect your brand, your business, and your family. Today we have some goodies for you. So we have John Sauter of Innovari Law on. He will be speaking and introducing himself shortly. We also have Chiffon Thomas with American Family Insurance and Madison Smith with Edward Jones. And they will be providing some tidbits as well regarding estate planning. Just a couple administrative things. If you do have questions, you can put them in the chat. My lovely admin assistant, Taylor Washington, she will be gathering the questions. And so at the end, we will have a Q&A session and I can answer any questions, or if you have questions for John, Chiffon, or Maddie, you can put them in the chat as well. Does anyone have any initial questions about anything before we begin? I hear nothing. We're going to move on. So without further ado, I just want to tell you the reason why I wanted to have this estate planning end of the year blowout event is because this year has been crazy, right? And with estate planning, it's changed in my firm, what that looks like, the conversations that I've had. And throughout it all, I've realized that this whole pandemic is really affecting everyone. Unfortunately, I have lost 2 family members due to COVID. One actually had a will and one did not. And so I've been working with my family during this time with estate planning, with probate. And I thought to myself, I have to continue to educate the public about this, especially during the pandemic. Everybody needs to know about estate planning. And so I just wanted to provide this toward the end of the year. So anyone that does not have their affairs in order, they can start getting them in order now because it is very important. So we're going to give you a guide to estate planning today, and I would like to hand it over to John Sauter with Innovari Law. He is a very, very, very good friend of mine. John is so smart. He is everything estate planning, and when I have questions, I call John. So John, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you for the very kind introduction there, and thank you for inviting me to be a part of this. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all about that, about estate planning. Do I control the slides, or are you able to do that?
I can do that.
Cool. The big starter and the biggest thing people ask me all, what is estate planning? I'm not a lord or a duchess. I don't have an estate. What do I need to worry about this stuff for? And so the truth is it's for everyone. You know, you've probably heard that old adage, the only thing guaranteed in life are death and taxes. And we spend, 12, 16, 20 years of our lives in the education system, and we never talk about them, right? And so this is, if you're here and you're like, I don't know what this is about, and you're a little nervous about it, you're right where everybody else is. You never learn about this, you never do anything about it until you get to the point where you run into it and you go, whoa, what is this? And usually people come to me in either 2 situations. Once they just lost someone, and they either had an estate plan and it was a good experience, or they didn't have an estate plan and it was a bad experience, or they just had children, because the will is the only place that you can name a guardian for your child, right? And so it's a really, really important thing that everybody should be thinking about that has minors. And so that's at least a starter, right? But we'll get into a little bit more later. As long as you're over the age of 18, you're competent to contract and you're competent to have an estate plan. And the easiest way to think about estate planning is it's all about your property, right? You've got 2 different kinds of property. One is your personal property, and the other is your titled property. So your titled property is anything that's so valuable to you that you want to put your name all over it to the exclusion of everyone else in the world, right? So nobody can just take your stuff. You're like, nope, here's my title. I own this car. I own this house. That is my bank account. And that is a very useful thing, right? Because you don't want people just coming around and claiming your stuff. But it's not useful in 2 situations. One is when you're no longer here. Who gets that stuff? It's got your name written all over it. How can someone else have it? And the other is when you're here but unable to act on your own, when you're incapacitated. And so that's what estate planning is about. I help you or Glenetta helps you with your property and figuring out how it's going to be handled in those two scenarios. And so the big thing with estate planning is control. And the more effort you put in and the more you do, the more control you'll have in the end, right? And a lot of that is, the word plan is in there for a reason, because it is you planning and doing and setting things up. Let's see here. A way to plan for retirement outside of traditional methods, a holistic and encompassing plan for your future. This is the time to talk, okay? And like I said, you know, you go through all this education and we never talk about this stuff because it's not easy to talk about. And a lot of times when people meet with me, it kind of opens the door. You know, you don't even think about this stuff because it's not pleasant to think about, really. Well, what do I do when I die? You know, I hear plenty of people say, I don't care, let them deal with it. I won't be around anymore. And that's true. But having been through it myself with the probate experience and having had an estate plan, I can tell you it is a ton easier than going through 8 banker's boxes in somebody's basement looking for stuff and trying to figure it out on your own. So, you know, I tell people when I meet with them to do an estate plan, I've got 2 audiences here. I've got you, who's right in front of me, and I want you to have some security in your future. You know, I want you to feel like you've done your plan and you can revisit it every few years and think about it and make sure that it's up to date, but otherwise not think about it because it's done. The second audience I'm thinking about is your loved ones, because when you're no longer here, I want them to be able to come to, we put a binder together for you. I want them to be able to come to that binder and it be a roadmap for everything they need to do to get your property transferred, right? And so that's the name of the game, is control on your end and planning and for your loved ones on the other end.
Thank you, John, for that. All right, so what is an estate? And John just alluded to the fact that estate is not the big house on the hill with the golden gate and all of that. The estate actually encompasses all of your assets, things that belong to you. So your house, your real estate, jewelry, household, and personal possessions, vehicles. And then on the other end, those intangible assets that you can't see, like your bank accounts, stocks, annuities, bonds, and even your intellectual property. So if you, for example, wrote a book, and you know you obtained copyrights and you sold this book and you started making money and you pass away and there's no writing letting someone know who the royalties go to for your book, then you know your family, they're all in court and they're trying to fight over your royalties from this book that really makes $24 a book. Is it, you know, and so you have to think about these things when you're discussing with your attorney your estate, because it's really just not those tangible things that you can see. So it's not just if you have real property. It's not just if you have a car. It's if you have anything tangible or intangible. And we'll talk about the different methods in which these items can be transferred. So what happens if you don't have an estate plan? I know you're like, okay, you convinced me, I'll get one, no worries. But what happens if I don't have one? Well, essentially, you no longer control what happens to you or your assets if you become incapacitated or you pass away. So you want to retain that control because you have it now. There's no reason to give it up. But your property, it can be transferred outside of your wishes, your incapacity wishes. So say you became sick or you had a surgery or something like that, and you want you don't want to be resuscitated or things that you may not internally believe, and someone may come in and make those decisions for you. You want to maintain control over that. You want to reduce the family feuds, because if you don't have estate planning, sometimes when you have money, people come out of the woodworks pretending to be your cousin that you've never heard of, trying to get some money because they feel like, they're a part of your family and they deserve your money because you passed away. So you don't want that. You don't want your family fighting over assets. we've had situations in which, there was not estate planning set up and there was a foreclosure of the family home because it could no longer be kept in the family. There was not that transfer of ownership, and the person that wanted the home couldn't absorb the cost anyway because there was no planning on the forefront. So you have to think about those things. And it's very difficult for your family to wind up your affairs when they're already grieving. If something were to happen to you and you pass away, they're grieving because you're no longer there. Then they have to go through all your items. They have to sort it. You don't want them to have to figure out what you wanted. You want all that to be written down, articulated, so it's easy. There's no probate. And they can get through and they can continue to live their life and grieve properly, because it's very difficult to grieve. And I've worked with so many families during probate. It's difficult to grieve when you're submitting paperwork and going through boxes and calling different companies. And then a lot of people are worried about privacy. I don't want to set up an estate plan because I don't want people to know my business. Well, guess what? If you don't set it up, everybody's going to know your business because they can go to CaseNet and look up probate. And they will know exactly how much you had in the bank if they really wanted to know that information. So you want to be sure that you get all these things together. You talk to your attorney about these things, and this is what happens if you don't have an estate plan. So John, will a will help me avoid probate?
I think that's the biggest misconception, Glenda, is that a will avoid probate. And the truth is, a will is your ticket into probate, right? And so if you don't have a will, the state gets to decide gets your stuff and who is your personal representative. But if you do have a will, you pick all that stuff. So, that's not to say that you don't need a will, right? We use the will as that backstop to make sure if you don't get all that other work done, at least if your loved ones have to go through probate, it's a lot easier. The best way I can explain it to people is it's like a sporting event. And of course, I'm going to use a sporting event, right? If you ever been to the Cardinals game, you get in the door and you can either be sitting in them green seats right down by the field. They come and serve you. You got your own bathroom. It's great. Or you're up in the nosebleeds. You can't see the game. You're in line for a half hour. You miss half the game waiting on a beer or a soda. And so that's the difference in probate, right? If you've got a will, they're like, oh, come on in, Mr. Sauter. Where would you like to sit? What do you need done? You get independent administration, meaning that the court doesn't hold the checkbook. Your loved ones do. They don't have to have everything approved in order for them to do it. It's just a much better experience. And so that last will and testament is your ticket in. It's where you tell them what you want done. You get to name your representatives, and the big part about planning is you pick multiple people, right? You give them options, not just choosing, oh, this person's going to do it. You're going to choose 3 different people because, the hardest thing about estate planning is you're trying to judge the future with today's information. And you don't know what the future is going to be like, right? So if you've got a sister and a cousin and an uncle that will be good, put them all on there. So that when they get to that point, they can get together and go, okay, who's got time in their life to do this, right? Because it is going to take a lot of time. And Glenda brought up a great point about grieving, because we don't talk about people's emotions and pain enough in this. And the truth is, when you get to this situation, and all of a sudden now you're on a timeline and the court decides, you've got to get this petition in, then you've got 30 days to file an inventory, and you got to do all this work to get this stuff done. If you do the planning, they can do it in their own time, right? They're not on anybody else's timeline. And so in that last will and testament, you can appoint your representatives, you can say where your assets go, you can have specific gifts to people. If you're involved in your church, you can say right that you can tithe right through there, 10% to the church, and the remainder goes to my children. You can, and like I said earlier, that biggest thing is the guardianships, right? Because if you don't name who your minor children go to, the court decides, and they pick who's the best person. And Glenda was talking about the feuds, right? And if you've ever seen a bigger feud, this is when it's going to happen, is because people all think they know what's best for you and your children, right? And it's up to you to make sure you get to decide what's best for you and your children. And again, it's that list. You list them. Who's my number 1 pick? Okay, well, who would I want them to go to after that? And after that? and really try to think it out and give them as many options so that the best person can step forward at that time to take care of your children and your pets in that instance. Because for many people, their pets are their children.
Yeah. Thank you, John, for answering that question. So, what is probate? You guys keep talking about probate. What is probate? You touched on it a little bit. Well, probate is a court process where the last will and testament, if you have a will, is proven valid or invalid. It gets submitted to the court, and then once that happens, you go through the probate process. And like John alluded to, it can be unsupervised. Most of the time it's unsupervised unless your will provides that it should be supervised, or unless there are issues or disputes with personal representatives, so on and so forth. So if you do have a will, I will let you know, and being a probate attorney, it makes things so much easier. There's no guessing as to who gets what, when, and how. It's all laid out, like John was saying, and it can be a quicker process because everyone knows what it is. And a lot of times, what I do sometimes is I include no bond, and if anyone has gone through probate at all, that bond, depending on the amount of the estate, can be pretty big. And you would have to come up with that to even start the probate, And so if you include those things in that last will and testament that John explained to us, it could be so much easier on your family if you do have to go through the probate process. And you go through the probate process if something is not titled properly. And we'll get more into that. But we want to avoid it. But if we do have to go through probate, we want to have the will as guidance. If you don't have a will, like I said, it makes things a lot more difficult. There's no guidance. There will be a bond. It can take longer. There'll be more family disputes more than likely because there's no named personal representative. So people automatically think, oh, I was closer to her or him. I should be the personal representative. Or, I know where they bank at, and, I helped them while they were sick. Well, they may not have liked that person, really. There could be a numerous of factors that I've seen in my line of work in which if you don't have a will, that will, it's not there, so it doesn't govern anything. And so people are just saying, well, he told me that he wanted this to go, and there's disputes. And so we want to make sure that you remain in control of your assets, tangible or intangible.
Yeah, and we were talking there about what happens at the end. I see a lot of bad scenarios, and I meet with a lot of people for estate planning, like, oh, my kids get along great, and I say they do now, but later it can get difficult because when you're getting towards the end of life, it becomes very difficult for everyone. You're losing your own freedoms. People are losing their support system, if that was you. And people, if you don't have the proper planning, people with bad ideas start showing up, and they start taking advantage, and they start trying to figure out ways to influence and get more than the others when the time comes. So if you can do that planning up front, it's better. And so we've been talking since up till now about probate, right? Well, the name of the game is avoiding probate. We want that will as a backstop, so that if our family does have to do it, they don't have to pay the bond, they get the independent administration, everything's easier. But let's not even do that, right? The easiest way is through non-probate transfer. So remember at the beginning, I was talking about you have two different kinds of property. You've got your titled property and your personal property. Your personal property is anything that doesn't have a title. And with that, it's really kind of that possession is 9/10 of the law is true. Whoever's holding it owns it, right? And we'll do some planning for your personal property, but what's more important is that titled property. And what you can do is on that title itself, you can name who takes it next, okay? And so that's a payable on death with a bank account. That's a transfer on death with vehicles. That's beneficiary designations, and that can be on your house. Luckily in Missouri, I know we're not a lot of forward thinking on a lot of things, but with non-probate transfers, we are. You can do a beneficiary deed for your house. We're one of a minority of states in the country that allows you to do that. And you put on there who takes it next. You record it with the recorder of deeds, and all they have to do is show up with that death certificate, and it's theirs. It's an instant transfer, right? There's no petitioning and inventory and all that kind of stuff. They show up, they get it, right? And something we haven't talked about, and it's really important here, is creditors, okay? Because that privacy thing, probate is public. In fact, probate cares more as much about creditors as it does your family. They're giving everybody an opportunity to get at your assets. And something that people don't know is that your creditors only have 1 year after you die to enforce their claims, right? And so if they don't even know you've passed, and they don't know that there's assets out there, they don't ever enforce their claims. And I've seen tens of thousands of dollars in credit card debt get wiped out because people plan correctly, right? This is where I say to people, you can not do the planning, but I'm going to make more off the back end than I will if you do your planning. So, it's more of a pain, but it's up to you what you want to do to preserve your assets. And this next one kind of talks about that, right? We got that deed transfers for the house, the TOD and POD designations, and that takes a lot of work. At my firm, we give you an asset list, and you go in there and you write down everything that you own, okay? And you write down how it's titled, and you make a copy of that title, and you put it right there, right? And so once you've gone through all your work and made your designations, you can come back every 3 to 5 years and go, okay, where am I at? Here's everything I own. Oh, we traded that car in and bought a new one. Oh my God, we didn't title it right. Okay, so let's redo that and make sure, right? So you pull that book out, you look at it, and then you put it away and you don't think about it, right? Because you've already done it. You've done the planning. It's not something that you're laying in bed at night and you're like, oh, what happens, So we're talking about non-probate transfers and avoiding probate. And everybody's probably heard of a trust, but most people don't know what it is because it's not something you interact with regularly. And a trust, if I tell people, is like a fancy non-probate transfer. Instead of transferring it directly to the person you want it to go to, you transfer it to the trust, and the trust determines how it gets distributed, right? So the easiest way to think about a trust is it's like an empty box with a set of instructions on the lid, okay? Anything that goes in the box is going to go by those instructions, all right? Now, I use the box analogy because if it doesn't go in the box, it doesn't go by the instructions, and then it goes by probate, right? So regardless of what we do, retitling things, there's going to be some legwork, and it's the most important thing you can do, and you need to track that stuff. But the trust is a great instrument because it gives you the most flexibility and the most control. I tell people, if you are one of those people that wants to reach beyond the grave and control a little bit into the future, the trust is the only way you're going to do that. And you can not only control your property, but you can protect your beneficiaries. You can make it so a trustee, and there's going to be a lot of words that get thrown at you here: personal representatives for wills, trustees for trusts, agents under your power of attorney. They're all essentially the same person. They're the person standing in your shoes for you, right? And doing the transfers and taking care of your stuff. And what these documents really do is empower those people to do what needs to be done to match your wishes, okay? And so when you do a power of attorney or a will or a trust, you're going to see these sections about the powers and bank accounts and all these things they can access. We want to give them as much power as we can to make sure they need to do as if we were there, okay? So that trust is going to be, there's going to be a settler and a trustee. You're creating it, you're the settler, and people are like, well, I don't want to give my stuff to a trust. No, you still own it. It goes under your social security number, it goes on your taxes as your stuff. That trust is just a container, right? It just holds your stuff. And then when you're no longer here and here to hold that box with your stuff in it, you've picked somebody else to be able to pick up that box and do what you've asked them to do with it. And so also there's two different kinds of trusts. There's revocable and irrevocable. What we're talking about here, the basic probate avoidance trust, is revocable. What that means is you can amend it or change it during your lifetime because your situation changes during your lifetime. You get married, you get unmarried, you have kids, you get, things change, you move, you buy property, and you need to be able to change those things. And the trust allows you to do that. It's completely flexible. And that's how it protects your assets. But it also protects your beneficiaries, because what you can do is say in a trust, you know what, if my daughter is in a situation where, let's say she's in the middle of a divorce, and I don't want that money being counted for the divorce proceedings, the trustee can hold the money back and not distribute it until after? Or what if something horrible happens and one of your beneficiary becomes disabled? Well, now they're going to be on government benefits, and that chunk of money could displace them from their government benefits. So what the trustee can do is hold the money back and only give them what they need to supplement their income, right? And so it really gives you that control. If there's any situation, another big one that I see more and more is drug and alcohol abuse, okay? And I'll write into my trust and give the trustee. Now, it doesn't require them, right? Because we don't want to be creating more problems. We don't want the trustee to be making everybody submit to testing, you know, before they're able to get their money. But if the trustee knows, right? If the trustee knows, man, she's been having a hard couple years. I know she's been having trouble. Now's not the time for her to get $40,000, you know, or it won't be here in 2 weeks if she gets it now, or he gets it now. Let's hold it back, make sure they do the testing, get them to use the trust money to get them the treatment they need and get them back on their feet and be responsible. The other thing that the trust does is it doesn't just dump a bunch of money into somebody's hands. You know, if you've got kids, it doesn't matter how old you are, you can still be bad with money, right? And what the trust allows you to do is disperse that money over different periods of time. So let's say you were to pass and you allow in the trust for the beneficiaries to get up to 1/3 of the amount within the first 5 years, okay? And then after that, the next 5 years, they get another third. After that, they get another third. Well, that allows them to learn how to use the money, right? And the biggest thing I've learned about money over time is that if you give it to somebody, they'll think about how to spend it after they already have it and try to spend it. If you make them ask for it, they'll think about what they're going to spend it on before they ask, right? And that makes it more purposeful. And I think if you've learned anything about money, if you're good with money at all, you've learned that you need to make your money work for you, right? You don't let work for your money. And that's one of the best things about a trust is you can plan and think and control and be thoughtful about what's going to happen to your money.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
All right, incapacity planning. So let's pretend for a moment that, you know, you're good. You're not about to pass away or anything, but you're good. You're having a great day, and you know, all of a sudden your tummy starts hurting, and you go to the hospital because your tummy hurts a lot, and they tell you you need to get your appendix taken out right now. You need to get your appendix taken out. It'll be fine. You'll get to go home tomorrow. It'll be in and out, quick procedure. You're healthy. You're good to go. But you don't have any incapacity planning. You don't have power of attorney. You don't have a medical directive. You don't have any of this. You're just going to go in. You're going to have the surgery because your tummy's hurting, and they say they need to operate on you right now. So you go in, and lo and behold, unfortunately, something crazy happens to where, you know, you can't breathe, and, you know, they're trying to resuscitate you, and they're not sure what to do because they find these things in going in and taking out your appendix, but you have nothing in writing. So they don't know who to call. They don't know who to call to figure out if it's okay to do this procedure on you to save your life. They don't know what your wishes are, if you want this procedure, if it's, you know, within your religion, or if it's outside of your religion, or if it's something that you truly want. You don't know if, they don't know if, you know, you do redline, if they need to resuscitate you. They don't know these things. And if there's nothing in place, no power of attorney, they don't know who to call. No healthcare directive, they don't know your wishes or living will. HIPAA waiver, they don't know who they can talk to. So once you're over the age of 18, you're your agent. You make those decisions for you, but no one else legally can make those decisions for you unless it's in writing, unless it's written down, signed, notarized. Just so you guys know, that story was me 2 years ago. I've had appendicitis and I had to go in, and a bunch of crazy stuff happened. But right before, I realized that all of my estate planning, everything that I did was in Arizona a long time ago when Jada was 1, and those people weren't available anymore. And so I literally wrote a holographic will on a piece of paper, had it signed, notarized, 2 witnesses. I was like, I need a healthcare directive. I need a notary. Like, before you guys do this, these are things that I need, because it dawned on me. And luckily I had those documents because I elected my parents to make those decisions for me, and they made the best decisions for me because I'm still here. So I say all that to say the durable power of attorney for your finances and your medical is very important because they elect an agent to act on your behalf if you become incapacitated, meaning you can't make those decisions for yourself. I had a tube down my throat. I couldn't make those decisions. I couldn't make any decisions about what bills I was going to pay or what was best for me at the time. And then healthcare directive or your living will, those things were outlined. I wanted to be resuscitated. Please resuscitate me, but they had that piece of paper and they were like, okay, let's keep her going, that HIPAA waiver. My parents were listed. So they knew they were there in the hospital, and the doctors can come out and tell them, this is what's going on with her. This is what's not going on with her. And then just touching on disability insurance is really important that, you get sick and okay, you're out for a while. If you're a business owner, who's going to pick up that slack? Where's the money going to come in? If you're an entrepreneur, if you're not going to work and your job doesn't offer that, where is the money going to come in to take care of financial situations that come up while you're down? And so that's my spiel on incapacity planning. It's very important, but it's a really big part of estate planning. And it's very important because estate planning is just not for your death. It's also for incapacity. Thank you for letting me share.
And if you don't choose who makes decisions on your behalf, the hospital will make the decision. And they do not have your best interest in mind.
Thank you, John. All right, and so just to touch on this briefly, myself and John, we are not financial planners or advisors, but we do recommend that you speak with a financial planner, financial advisor, an insurance agent about your retirement and life insurance and end of life plans. And what I do, and I'm sure John does this in his practice as well, is we work with the insurance agent, we work with the financial planner, and we talk about these things. What assets, do you see that I cannot see on my end? How do you feel that we should best protect this client? And so most of the time I work hand in hand with the financial planner or financial advisor to make sure that your assets are secure. You also want to, during this process, establish or revise a plan with your A team. So your A team, like I said, could be that financial planner, it could be your attorney, it could be your insurance agent, anyone that you have on your team, your personal representative, to determine if necessary coverages and plans are going to be sufficient for you. Because a lot of times I see that people, they may have an insurance policy, right? And we talk about, okay, well, you have a $7,000 insurance policy, that's only going to bury you. Do you want your kids to have any money? Do you, what else do you want? And then we work with them to be sure that you have enough for whatever you're going to do. So we do recommend that this be a holistic process. It's not just shooting out documents for you to sign. It's really a whole encompassing process that as an estate planning attorney, we want to work with you on. And so now I just want to introduce briefly Maddie Smith with Edward Jones and Siobhan Thomas with American Family Insurance. Now these two ladies I've worked with in the past. They are fabulous. They both have lots of knowledge. If I have questions with my clients, I contact these two individuals. And so if we can just start by having Madison Smith briefly introducing herself and talk briefly about the importance of insurance in your estate plan.
Yeah, hi, thank you, Glenna. So like she said, I'm Maddie Smith. I'm a financial advisor over at Edward Jones. And as far as talking about insurance with your estate plan, first of all, Glenna took the words right out of my mouth of whenever people say, oh, I just have this much money, and the price of burial, which I encourage you guys to Google it, is no longer cheap. It's not just putting you in the ground and covering you with dirt. I mean, you can, but you also might get arrested. But insurance also is so much more flexible than we realize. A lot of people get mad because they're like, well, I don't want to make them rich when I'm dead. But especially when you're establishing a generational legacy, insurance can be powerful, and it can even be used while you're still alive. Again, it's not just insurance for death benefit or after you're dead. It's long-term care as well. So your family does not have the burden of scraping by, trying to find money to take care of you. They have that insurance policy to use to take care of you so you can live the rest of your days how you want to live your days. I know every single year I review insurance, not just life insurance, all insurance with my clients to make sure they're having enough, because lo and behold, things happen and sometimes they need a little bit more. And I don't want to take too much of, Chiffon and what she says as well, but from the financial advising side and the financial planning side, insurance definitely needs to be part of the estate strategy, whether it's you want enough to bury them or you want a generational legacy. And it's something that also needs to be reviewed, because there have been several times where ex-wives and ex-husbands have been very, very happy when there's a death of someone, because that plan was not updated. So that is all I'm going to say, and pass it back to you, Glenetta.
Wonderful. Thank you, Maddie. I appreciate that insight. That was really good. And just reiterating the fact that, you have to have a plan. And if you don't have a plan, you plan to fail. And you don't want to fail on, your children and your grandchildren. You want to set them up for success. So thank you, Maddie. Chiffon, would you like to introduce yourself with American Family Insurance?
Absolutely. Good morning. First of all, thank you so much for the platform. I really appreciate it. Secondly, Chiffon Thomas. I'm with American Family Insurance. Have about 7 years background in the insurance industry, and the fact that life insurance, as Maddie and Glenetta just alluded, needs to be a part of the estate planning process. The reason why is because often enough it provides a liquid asset in the probate. If you don't have a will, it's something that avoids probate. It avoids probate only if you have beneficiaries. So you need to have a primary beneficiary, and in most cases you need to have a contingent beneficiary. And as Maddie just said, you need to make sure that you review those policies often because of the ex-wife or the ex-husband. And that's something that became really prevalent from 9/11. A lot of people hadn't gone back and updated their life insurance policies, and the people that they wanted to protect weren't able to be protected because they hadn't gone back and updated their life insurance policies. So you definitely want to make sure that you take a look at them and review them often enough to make any necessary changes so that you protect the ones that you intend to protect with the life insurance. Offers diversification. So again, it's something that's tax-free dollars. Life insurance is different for different people. So I always tell my clients, your life insurance needs are going to be different from the next person's. So with that being said, that $7,000 policy that you have that you think is enough may not be enough to actually do what you want it to do, especially if you have children. So a life insurance needs analysis is something that should be done, so that you don't just come up with an arbitrary number. Most people just pull a number out of the air. Oh, I need $150,000, but they don't know why they need $150,000. Why do you need that $150,000? Is that $150,000 really going to be enough to do everything that you want to do? So making sure that you do a life insurance needs analysis is very, very important, because it comes up with a number that will allow you to do the things that you want to do. Life insurance is also ever changing, so it's something that should be renewed from time to time, or reviewed, from time to time. And the best way that I can say that is, I personally have a term life insurance policy, but I also have a whole life insurance policy, and I have a universal life insurance policy. Those things do different things at different times in your life. So the term insurance policy I have for mortgage protection. After my home is paid off in 30 years, am I really going to need that large amount of money to, pay off the home if the home is already paid off? Term insurance is not permanent insurance. So you want to make sure that you have a good mix of insurance policies in order to do the things that you want to do. And as your needs change, sometimes your insurance is going to change. So you should review your insurance as well. Glenetta kind of alluded also to the fact of disability insurance. That's a great segue into disability insurance because most life insurance policies have the option to have a rider that will continue to pay your life insurance in the event that you become disabled. So that's not something that every life insurance agent is going to offer you. But now that you have the knowledge of that, you can ask if that rider is available so that you can protect your income, or so that you can keep your life insurance intact in the event that you become disabled. And then the disability insurance, when you become disabled or unable to work, most people think that being disabled comes as a result of accidents, but that's not necessarily true either. You could have cancer that renders you unable to work. The biggest thing I think I see most of the time is a stroke. If you become paralyzed because you had a really bad stroke, sometimes you can't go back to work the way that you wanted to. So disability insurance, an independent policy, can supplement your income if you have disability through work. And most of us get disability through our employers because it's fairly inexpensive. But if you have an independent disability plan, it allows you to make what you were making possibly if you plan for it properly, so that your lifestyle doesn't have to change, because life goes on. You're still going to have bills that need to be paid. And it's just a good way to ensure that you're doing as much and you're being as prepared as possible for the what ifs in life, because that's essentially what life insurance protects against, is the what ifs. So I guess that's all I have to share. I'll pass it back to Glenetta.
Thank you so much. I like what you said about diversification and just the many ways that insurance can benefit you and your family. So thank you so much, Maddie and Chiffon. You guys have been very helpful providing that insight. So what can an estate plan include? So we talked about all of these things, but we'll walk you through them. But in general, estate planning can include counseling and discussion regarding your assets, like we've been talking about, and all the things that we've been talking about, essentially your last will and testament, the guardianship appointments of your minor and pets, trust, your durable power of attorneys, your HIPAA release, healthcare directives, the deeds that we talked about earlier. We'll discuss with you the methods of retitling your assets, insurance and how it applies to your estate plan, and even entity creation, not just a trust, but LLCs, in order to pass down wealth or keep those assets within a certain box, as John would say. I like his analogy of the box. All right, so the process. Estate planning, sometimes people come to me and they're like, well, this seems like a lot. I don't feel like doing all of this work. It just seems like a lot. And it's really not. The process is really easy, right? As long as you have a really good A-team that can walk you through it, explain to you what you're doing, and go through your situation with you to help you make the best decision for you and your family. So we have the consultation. We just talk with you. We take the time out to look at the documents that you have and understand the needs of you and your family. And then we draft the documents for you. We'll send you a summary letter before we even talk to you about it, summarizing and outlining what these documents do and what your documents are articulating. And then we'll send you the full documents to review. We'll talk to you about it. We'll have another conversation, walk you through it, answer any questions that you have. And then we have our signing ceremony, in which you sign all your documents in front of 2 witnesses and a notary. And then what you would do is you would copy these documents, you would put them in a safe place. I have a binder, which I provide to all my clients, which is, I think I have one right here, but I'll show it to you later. But you can put things on a flash drive if you want and give them to your personal representative so they have it. But you want to make copies and give them to individuals that need them. Like your medical documents, they need to go to your PCP so your PCP can have those on file. And so you'll copy them, you'll implement them, you'll store them. If you have a trust, you'll go ahead and open up that account, start transferring things in it. And then from time to time, I say every 5 years, but other people, every 3 years need to review their estate plan. It's all going to be situational, but you want to be sure that you're constantly taking a look to make sure there are no major changes, any material changes that would affect your estate planning down the line. So the process is very easy from start to finish. The longest time I've ever taken, I won't even tell you about it, but it was not on me, I promise. It doesn't take me long to actually know who my client is and understand their needs. So it's a very quick process. It's very easy. We do a lot of hand holding, and if we work with a financial advisor, an insurance agent, a planner, we'll work with them too to make sure it's as seamless as possible and you're not confused. All right, it's Q&A time. So what I want to do is I want to open this up for any question and answer for myself, John, Maddie, or Chiffon. There may be some questions already in the chat, but if there are, Taylor, do you mind unmuting and reading any questions that have come in throughout the seminar?
Yes. So Amanda asked, how does the trust or wills affect financed assets, such as mortgages and car notes?
John, do you want to answer this?
Yeah, it doesn't affect them. It's still you that owns it, right? Now, with a real property like with your house, there will be a mortgage, and they will have what they call an acceleration clause in it. That means that any time that a property is transferred, the whole mortgage becomes due. Now, there's laws that say that doesn't affect a revocable trust, but just to be careful, instead of transferring things immediately, a lot of times we'll do beneficiary deeds. And with houses, it really is a better situation because sometimes you'll go to sell the house, and I tell people it's funny because it's called a trust, but nobody else tends to trust it but you. They want to see it. They want to know what's in it. They want to know all the stuff about it, which they don't. You have a trust certification that'll come with it that you can show people that will give them the information they need. But with houses, sometimes the title insurance will want the property out of the trust before they'll insure it. And so what we'll do is instead of transferring it directly into the trust, you can transfer it upon death. And you could do that with your other stuff too. Instead of putting the bank account in the trust, you could just make it POD, payable on death, to the trust. Then there's never an issue. You could do it TOD on your vehicle title, and then the container only gets filled upon your death.
Thank you, John. Were there any other questions, Taylor?
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, and this is only because I've gone through this personally, but I want everybody to know in regards to children, how are you supposed to set up a trust? Like, particularly, should the child be named in the trust, or should the trust be in place of the child, or something like that, in terms of like life insurance is concerned? Am I making sense?
I think so. It depends on the age of the child, right? If they're a minor, a lot of times I'll name them as a backup so that, because we only want to do this planning once, right? And so what I'll do is I'll name, an aunt or an uncle first, or a good friend of the family that's good with money, right? We always want that to be a qualifier. And then the kid after them, right? Because this isn't set in stone. If the person in front of the kid wants to step out of the way so the kid can handle the money, they can. But you also remember you're doing this to protect the kid. So a lot of times you'll want someone separate to be the trustee. And if you don't have that person, there are corporate trustees, right? As long as your finances are sufficient for them to take it on, they will, for a percentage, handle the trust. And in many instances, I'll name a corporate trustee as a backup because, you know, like I said, again, you're judging the future with today's information, and it's really hard to decide, you know, what is it going to look like then.
Thank you, John. Was there another, Taylor?
Yes, so Kevin asked, if you have a trust set up, do you usually set up a spillover will, or would that be included in your regular will?
Well, generally, I draft a pour-over will for your trust when I'm drafting these documents, so it can point back to the trust. So if there's any issue, the will points back to the trust and explains that that asset has been put into the trust, so to keep the assets separate.
Yeah, a lot of times we'll sell these as packages. So you'll get the pour over will, the trust, and the power of attorney. They'll all work together. They'll all get signed on the same date. And then it's clear. Like I said about before, the will is that backstop. Regardless of what this other stuff you do, you're going to want the will to make sure that you've at least got that good seat in the stadium, right? You don't want your family in the nosebleeds. And so that pour over will is an integral part of that.
Thank you.
And the last one, I believe, possibly, what's the difference between the beneficiary deed on your home and leaving it to your children in the trust?
Okay, so the quick answer is means of transfer, and when it will take into effect, because the trust will say when this event happens, then the house goes to whomever. The beneficiary deed comes into place when the person passes away, and that happens as soon as you go and take in the death certificate. That transfer happens then. So you can elect when a certain happening occurs in a trust versus with a beneficiary deed, it will happen upon the death.
And I'd like to cover two things here real quick that come up, the mistakes that people make before they talk to an attorney or without talking to an attorney. The first is quitclaim deeds, okay? Don't do quitclaim deeds. Okay. First off, there's this thing called tax basis, okay? So whenever you buy a house, what the price you buy it at is your basis. Any amount over that it grows and earns is what you're going to get taxed on when you sell the place, okay? So if you transfer to your family your property through a quitclaim deed, they take over your basis. So when they go to sell it, they have to pay the profits on the amount above that basis. But if they get it upon your death, their basis becomes the value of it the day they inherit it. And that is huge. That can be tens of thousands of dollars, right? And so don't transfer now, transfer upon death. One of the beauties of a trust is it preserves that, right? If you put it into the trust, when it passes to them upon your death, it still gets that step up in basis. So the trust is really important for that. A second thing is bank accounts, okay? We talked earlier about POD, payable on death. A lot of people, because of the ease, will add a child to their bank account as a joint in a joint account, right? Horrible idea. First off, the moment you put them on there, that's 100% their money as well. They're not just on there to help you, they can empty it and there's no consequences, okay? It also opens you up to their creditors. If they've got issues, now they can come after your accounts. And it really looks suspicious to other family members. And a lot of people will do that instead of the right planning, right? Because if you had a power of attorney, if you became incapacitated, or you could even make a power of attorney active from the moment that you sign it, that person could act on your behalf, but they are a fiduciary. They have to act in your best interests. The moment you take away that fiduciary, they don't have to care about your interests. And in many instances, oh, that'll never happen to me. You can't tell what the future is going to hold, right? And so the best thing you can do is plan and be smart about it. And I see this issue all the time. Do not do joint accounts. Do payable on death with a power of attorney, and that will protect everyone.
Thank you, John. It was really good insight. Taylor, were there any more?
So someone had a question to me, and I just want to double check with you. Where do I go to like, share, and comment for the drawing? Do you just want people to check in, or is there anything that you'd like them to share?
Mhm. Thank you for that. So if you go to Haymon Law Office's page, you can share that you're attending the event. You can share the event. You can take a picture of yourself. You can like our page. What we're going to do when we get off is we are going to pick one person that is in attendance today to get 50% off of their estate plan. That's huge. That's up to, over $1,000 savings, depending on the type of estate plan that you need. And the reason why I'm doing this is because it's really, really important for everyone, if you haven't figured it out, to have an estate plan. And to me, money is not a thing when it comes to dealing with families and seeing them grieve and going through the probate process. So when we get done, we will go on Facebook, announce one winner, and you guys are more than welcome to tune in because we will be live. And we will select that winner. We will send you an email and let you know that you are the winner. Any other questions?
Yes, Amanda just asked, I have a question regarding clarification.
Hello, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry. So I had posed the question about the financed assets as far as the mortgages and the car insurance, and I heard the explanation, but I didn't get clarity on, does the mortgage companies acknowledge wills or trusts, or how does that look? I know that there are, due on sale clauses and things like that, but in the event that I pass away and I have children and I am married and I, have all these assets, and even though I have a beneficiary deed set aside that can be recorded upon my death, what does the mortgage company acknowledge? Does somebody just pick up making mortgage payments and then when it's paid off, it's gone away? Or like what, because I've had this happen before with clients of mine, and I still don't have an answer as to what that looks like. What needs to be recorded with the mortgage company to say, in the event that I pass away, this person has, authorization to act on my behalf with this mortgage? Or does that person have to go qualify for a mortgage and, go through that whole thing and purchase it or something?
Can I interject before you guys answer that? Do you mind?
Go ahead.
Okay. Mortgage protection or mortgage insurance or a term insurance policy will help immediately in that instance. If you're worried about, because when we pass away, there are things that we don't necessarily take into consideration. One of them being that not only is your husband and your children grieving your loss, but that second income, if your two-family income, is also gone. So mortgage protection comes in the form of term insurance. Term insurance is very, very affordable for the amount of insurance that you get. It's meant to survive the life of the loan on your mortgage. So if you have a 30-year mortgage, you take out a 30-year term life insurance policy, a level one. And upon your death, that money pays for the house so that you don't have to worry about disruption of lifestyle. You don't have to worry about your family now being displaced because your spouse can't afford the mortgage on his own. So having something like that in place, because there is a living spouse as well, and I'm not quite sure if I'm overstepping, but it will continue that they will be able to stay in the home and not have to worry about that, and could also offer additional income replacement because you're not there, so that they continue the lifestyle that they had as if you were still a two-family income.
Okay.
Right. I have that in place as well. I have term insurance to cover my mortgage with my mortgage company, the beneficiary, so on and so forth. So I'm just trying to find out, I guess, what that looks like, or in the event that, because, my husband and I have rental property as well, what does that look like if there's a mortgage on something? What does the actual mortgage company acknowledge as it relates to wills and trusts?
John, did you want to further clarify what you were telling her before? Or did you want me to jump in? You're muted, by the way.
There we go. So Yes, the difference with real property compared to any other property is that that mortgage is going to have a deed of trust, which is a lien against the property. So when you buy a property, you or inherit it, you take it subject to any liens. Now, as you said before, that we're talking about that acceleration clause or that due on sale clause, they will have the potential to enforce that if they want to. That's why the planning is so important, because you don't want to put the control in the hands of the mortgage company. You want to put the control in the hands of your beneficiaries and to have those assets available to them to pay it off if they need to. Now, I've seen plenty of situations where the mortgage, as long as the bills are being paid, nobody asks questions, okay? And that's the biggest thing to remember, and that's why the planning is so important. It's when 2, 3, 4 months go by that the mortgage hasn't been paid that they perk up, because that acceleration clause is only triggered if the mortgage company finds out that you're dead. Okay, and if you do the right planning, nobody, with the exception of people that are looking for your obituary or have been told, nobody knows. Okay, and you want that. You want your beneficiaries to be able to act under that and not have to worry about everybody breathing down their neck, and to move at their own pace and to make the choices that they want to best handle their lives and to best take care of everything for you.
And additionally, Amanda, I've also seen situations in which the personal representative actually absorbed the mortgage and refinanced in their name because there was no estate planning. So, the mortgage company, thank God, allowed them to just take it over and say, I'll absorb the mortgage, go ahead and put it in my name. And they were able to keep it in the family. I barely ever see that happen. I was really surprised, but I'm glad that they allowed it. But to me, it was just, I felt like in that particular situation, the bank didn't want it back. They didn't want to deal with trying to sell it. They were okay with the daughter saying, just go ahead and refinance in my name and I'll continue to pay it.
Right, but she's got to qualify, and,
Right.
and that's a big thing. That, like she said, the mortgage company doesn't want the house; they want the money, right? And as long as it's getting paid, they'll care. But making sure, thinking about, will that person be able to qualify to refinance into their name? That's why Chiffon was so right. You got to plan. You got to do the term insurance is not expensive, and it really will give you peace of mind, and your heirs will be so grateful.
Thank you. We have time for one more question because we are over, but we wanted to give everybody an opportunity. Do we have one more question, Taylor?
So not a question, but Maddie said that she has a quick statement.
All right, Maddie.
Yeah. So my biggest thing I just kind of wanted to say is don't make your estate plan your dirty little secret, like where it's something where you just keep it to yourself. And especially if you have children or minors that are dependent on you, because I will tell you that I have had people say, hey, I want you to take care of my kids. And I'm like, no. So that's the worst thing that you can do for your kids. Not only are they grieving because they lost you, but they also been rejected because someone can't take care of them. But I'm not telling you to share it on Facebook. I'm not telling you to put a cute selfie on Instagram or anything like that. But definitely pick those 1 or 2 people, especially the people you're assigning as guardians or whoever your dependents are, and let them know what your plan is. Just let them know. It doesn't have to be how much assets are in it every single year, but let them know what their role is as far as your estate plan goes. So that's the only thing I wanted to add in there.
Thank you, Miss Maddie. Right, and thank you all for attending Haymon Law Office End of the Year Estate Planning Blowout Event. If you guys want to schedule a free consultation, we can do that today. I would just ask you to stay on so I can put you in a breakout room and get you with Taylor and she can put you on the calendar. Otherwise, we just appreciate everyone for attending. We appreciate the presenters for sharing their insights and all of their knowledge. I'm so thankful to you guys for being here, John, Maddie, and Chiffon, and all of the visitors today. It's early, it's Saturday, it's rainy, it's gloomy. I know you probably want to stay in bed, but you popped on Zoom today to chat with me about estate planning, and I am just so grateful. So if you can do me a favor and share with your friends the importance of estate planning, especially during this time. To me, I don't care who does it. I can do it, John can do it, but we have to spread the word. So if I ask anything of you guys today, is make sure your family has the proper estate planning, because now is not the time to play. So thank you again. If you guys want to contact Haymon Law Office, there's all of our contact information. We offer business law services, contract, intellectual property, including trademark and copyright as well. So if you guys need additional services, that's what we offer. And does anyone on the presentation team want to give any last remarks?
I just want to say thank you for giving me this platform, as they said before, and thank you all that listened for your time. These consults are free. Set up with Glenetta, and just get that peace of mind of knowing, even if you can't get it done right now, start the process so that you know that you're on the path to having that. There's so much anxiety right now, and if you can do anything to relieve a little bit, this is it.
Thank you, John. John is awesome, guys. That's my buddy. I call him with all my estate planning questions. All right. Maddie, do you want to say anything? Chiffon?
Yeah, I would say something you kind of said earlier, but it was just a really quick tidbit, but develop your A team. However many people that may be, and these are the people that without fail, every year, every 3 years, every 5 years, you are talking to all of them, and they all know each other and they all know their business. So that's my first thing. Second thing, like I said, don't let your estate plan be their dirty little secret. Don't let the first time your family is meeting your financial advisor, your estate planning attorney, or whatever, is when you're passed. Build that relationship before with your family and friends, because let me tell you, it makes the grieving process and meeting with that person a lot less taxing emotionally than when you know them. So that would be my tidbit in my homework, because if anyone knows me, I always give homework after meetings. That think about who you would want on your A team and go ahead and contact them. And of course, me being me, I'm like, contact Lynetta for this. But that would be my homework for everyone after this meeting.
Thank you, Maddie. Love it.
And I would just like to say, do not procrastinate. If you're on here because you've thought about it, you're in the process of doing it. Maybe you haven't made the decision to do it just yet. Because I've had a personal experience with an unexpected death that involved minors, and things did not go the way that they were supposed to go. She was in the process of doing a trust and she had a will, but because her I's weren't dotted and her T's weren't crossed, things ended up in disarray, and it just wasn't a very good situation. So I implore you that if this is something that you're thinking about, go ahead and just do it, because we never know what's going to happen. And you want to make sure that things are done the way that you want them to be done. So I implore you that if this is something that you want to do, don't wait, do it.
Thank you. Great last words. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, I am going to end it there because that sounds wonderful, Chiffon. I appreciate you all. As I mentioned, if you want to schedule a consultation, a free consultation, please stay on. I'll put you in a breakout room. We'll get you scheduled. And everyone else, I hope you have a wonderful Saturday. Thank you, thank you, thank you for attending.
Hi, thank you. This was wonderful.
You're welcome. Thank you.
It's very, very nice, Glenetta. Thank you. Thank you to all the panel. Great information.
We appreciate you showing up, Miss Janet.
My pleasure.